Hello, Jamie here. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Friday, July 24th, and we're going to talk stimulus today. Right now, I am live on my Facebook group, Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. If you are not there, go check it out. I will link it below if you're watching me on YouTube. I'm also streaming live on YouTube on my channel, Jamie Trull. If you're not following me, go over and follow me there, so that you can make sure to get all the updates. And I'm also live on my Balance CFO Facebook page. So I see a lot of you guys joining. So say hey when you're here, because this is live. So today is my Q&A. So each Friday I've been holding a Q&A right around 1:30 Central Time to answer what questions you guys have. We've been mostly focusing on things stimulus related. So what does that mean? Well, that means PPP loans, EIDL loans, unemployment, all of these government acts that are being proposed and are being talked about. Okay, great. I see you guys joining. Hey, James and Carl. Awesome. Hey, guys. Okay, I see the YouTube people. All right, there's some Facebook people. There we go. Gabriel, awesome. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to be taking your questions. So as you have questions, let me know. I do want to give you an update, though, on what is going on right now, because Senate just came back in session. So this is kind of what we've been waiting for. We knew that there was probably going to be a next round. Oh my goodness, I just got a very long question. Okay, it's hard. I can't see all of your questions. It does compress them down. So if you can do them when they're not too terribly long, that does help, because I can't read all the questions that somebody just sent through. So let's talk, though, about where we're at right now. So like I said, Senate just came back in session. There has been a lot of talk about another round, almost like a CARES Act 2 is what some people are calling it. We don't know if this looks like it's probably going to be one large bill. It could also be sort of parsed out into smaller bills depending on how the negotiations go in Congress. So we don't yet know, but we do know that the Republicans specifically and the Democrats, they each kind of have their own bill, but we're waiting to see the Republican bill, which is probably going to be the starting point for negotiations from the Senate. So this bill would then kind of show us where they're thinking, where they want to go with the support as we kind of get to this phase 2 of what's going on in our country right now, which is, obviously things are, it depends on where you're at, but some businesses are still struggling. A lot of businesses are still struggling. I hear your stories daily. A lot of industries are really still struggling that rely maybe on people traveling or on things like that. And there's a lot of uncertainty, especially with kids and going back to school. And I don't know about you guys, but we've been wrestling with the decisions on what to do with our kids around here. So it's just, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of economic uncertainty right now. So, and they know that. And so they know that there's going to have to be another round of stimulus to help with that. So the first thing that I'll say is it does look like there will likely be another check to consumers, right? To people. So directly to people. This was not business related. This is similar to this $1,200 you got before. Looks like the proposal at least would be another $1,200. The question is going to be who would qualify? Will it be the same exact people? Will they potentially lower the threshold? It's a little unclear. It seemed like we thought that they were going to maybe lower the threshold. There had been some talk of if you made under $40,000, you would get it. If above that, it might be phased out. So that would be lower than what the threshold was before. But now it almost seems like with Mnuchin talking today that it probably will be closer to what was proposed last time. But again, we don't know until we see it. So right now, we're sitting in a place where we don't even have a proposed bill. So the next step would be they will propose a bill, then they will kind of debate it out. Then hopefully something will pass the Senate, whatever that looks like. Then it'll go to the House, then it'll go to the president, right? And that's a whole process. They leave, I think August 7th or 8th is when they are scheduled to go out on recess. I don't think that they'll be able to leave. I think that they will need to stay until they get something passed on this. And I do hope that will happen, because, we can't just kind of put this on pause and then take this back up over Labor Day. People are waiting to know what's going to happen with their business, what they need to be doing. It's also going to talk about unemployment. So I know that's a question probably some of you guys have, is on unemployment. I'm looking to see what your questions are right now, but let's see. So yeah, lots of conflicting information indeed. Real quick, I'll talk about unemployment because that's where we are butting up on the end of FPUC. A lot of people think that this was PUA that is running out. It's not. So PUA is the reason that unemployment is applicable to business owners and to self-employed people and to other people who normally wouldn't be able to apply for unemployment insurance. That's what extended it, and that goes through December 31st. The extra $600 is the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, FPUC. That is what is scheduled to expire by the end of July. And for a lot of people, that's really like this week was the last week, just by the way the days fall. So for a lot of people, it's July 25th. So a lot of people have been asking, is that going to get extended? Is it not? Some people want it extended because they are personally drawing from it. Some business owners don't want it extended because it's having an impact on them being able to hire back workers who don't want to come back to work because they're making more on unemployment. It's a really complicated topic, right? It's a really, really complicated topic, and it's one that gets people pretty heated, I will tell you. And I think where they will not be extending, I would be absolutely shocked if they extended it in its current form, i.e. the $600. That will not be sticking around. Will they do something? Yes, I believe that they will do something. So there has been some talk of a 70% threshold that's been thrown around, meaning you could make up to 70% of what you previously made on unemployment. You could not make more than what you were making before, which is one thing that is complained about a lot with this current package, is that there are people who are lower wage earners that are actually making quite a bit more. This has impacted restaurant owners and people like that who've had trouble, getting their employees back because they're doing better on unemployment. So they want to cap it. But the problem with the cap, and this is one of the things that we thought that we were going to see a draft yesterday, and we thought we were going to see a draft yesterday and nothing came out. And they basically said probably Monday is when that draft will come out. And again, this is just a draft of the bill. This isn't, there's still quite a whole process before that actually has to, go through and get passed and be enacted. But we thought we were going to see something, and it seems like what the big holdup is this 70%. Let's see, I got to block somebody. Hang on. Okay. Is this 70% threshold? Because the problem is, and the reason they didn't do this before, they talked about this with the first CARES Act to kind of put a limit and say you can't make more than you used to make. But the states, as we've seen, their systems aren't really set up for this kind of thing. So to put that limit on, where they had to actually, it's just a lot more administrative work and really hard when you have the volume of applicants that we have right now to kind of figure out on an individualized basis what the max each person can get. And that could delay benefits, which we already know have been delayed enough. So that's really what the sticking point, I think, is right now, that they're saying, well, we want to limit this. We don't want it to be people to be able to make more than they could before, make more than 70% of what they could before, because we don't want to disincent working. But, right, it's really hard to implement something like that. In honesty, it's really, really hard. And so, especially when you got 50 different states with 50 different processes. So I think that's really the big holdup right now. So what I've heard them toss around, and this might be temporary or it might be the new go ahead, is maybe starting with like $200 instead of the $600. So, it would be less likely for people to be able to make significantly more on unemployment with the 200 versus the 600. So that's kind of the big thing that's still swirling. We don't know. They'll probably do something with unemployment. At one point, there was talk of adding a back to work bonus as well. But those talks seem to have fizzled, so I'm not sure if they're going to make it into the final draft proposal or not. But it would have kind of basically tried to incent people the other way, where they're incented and given money for going back to work. But obviously, there are some challenges in the implementation of something like that too. So who knows where it will end up? But they are wanting to kind of continue to supplement, some of this money that people need. Because to be honest, it is one of the things that has propped up the economy is giving people this extra money, right? It really has kept our economy from like tanking completely. And so, it's kind of a difficult line to walk to figure out what the right answer is. I do not, I know there's a lot of, I try not to get into politics, and I'm not going to, you guys. I do not envy the position that they're in to try to make this work and come together and come up with something that's gonna, they're gonna be able to agree on. Okay, so can you explain the 70% again? How do you figure out what that means even? Some intercompanies, or independent contractors. I would assume, so obviously the 70% would also apply to people who are employees, so not just for people who are self-employed. So obviously that's easier, right? They can kind of calculate that out. For independent contractors, things like that, it probably would be based, again, everything they're doing is swirling around what did you make in 2019 as your net profit. So it probably would be something based on your net profit. If you're a Schedule C filer, that's your Schedule C line 31 that you couldn't make, and then they would take, weekly. So take that divided by 52, and you couldn't make more than that each week on unemployment. That is probably how that would play out. That seems to be what they're kind of anchoring back to on these. So that's what I would assume would be the calculation of that 70%. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you, Victoria. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about forgiveness. So let's talk about PPP in general. And then I'm going to talk at the end of this about forgiveness. And I just wrote an article that literally just got published with Gusto, who's the payroll provider that I recommend. I've started writing for their blog. And there's a really good article on when you should apply for PPP forgiveness. So I'm going to link all of you guys to that because it talks about the considerations of whether you should apply now, whether you should wait. You can apply before the end of your 24 weeks. All of that is possible, but it might not be in your best interest depending on your specific situation. It really depends. And so the article goes into that. So I'm going to link that because I get that question a lot about should I apply or shouldn't I? Banks are starting to get a process in place. One big caveat here that also might be, I'm not sure if it'll be part of this bill or separately passed. They are still looking at the $150,000 blanket forgiveness. What does that mean? We have to see, but it seems like it would take away some of that paperwork that would be necessary to apply for forgiveness for your PPP loan if the originating value was under $150,000. Some people have, I felt bad for a girl who said she got $156,000. She just said, can I just pay $6,000 back and be under $150,000? And I don't think that's the way it's going to work. It's going to be origination value if they pass it. And they may pass it with a different threshold. They may pass it totally differently. We don't know what it means yet because we haven't seen it really in print. So we need to see how this works its way out. But I think that's something, hopefully we'll have an answer again before, the end, before like the end of next week or the week after when Congress is out of session. So I think that's why a lot of people were wondering, why did they move it to August 8th? Why did they move the PPP deadline from June 30th to apply to August 8th? This is not for forgiveness, but just to apply to get it. And it corresponds with when the Senate is supposed to leave again. So basically, I think they were putting another line in the sand to give them until they came back and could make additional rules around it. Speaking of PPP, a lot of questions people have asked are, okay, well and good that, the deadline has been extended to apply, but I can't apply because I already got my PPP back in April and that thing's long gone by now. And I'm still struggling. What am I supposed to do? So if that's you, I do believe that there will be either in this bill or a separate bill, an extension of PPP that would allow for certain business owners to be able to obtain a second PPP loan. That has been talked about. It likely would have more parameters than the first one. The first one, you just did a self-certification to say, yeah, I need this. I need this loan because I'm negatively impacted. This would require more proof of the impact on your business. So potentially proof of your gross receipts being significantly impacted by COVID. So it would be harder to get than the first one, but it could be really beneficial, specifically for those industries that have been hit really, really hard in this. And there are a lot of industries that have, and that don't really, when they look into the horizon, they don't see it getting much better anytime soon. So this would be another round. I would assume it would have the same rules as the final rules now for PPP. meaning that you can use it over 24 weeks, meaning that you could it was a 5-year term, all of that. So I think it would have kind of the 60% threshold. I think it would have probably similar characteristics, maybe some additional flexibility to use it for other expenses, but we don't know yet. So that is being talked about as well. So much is still unknown. And you guys, it's funny that this is all going to come to a head. I was hoping we'd know more this week. I'm pretty sure we're going to get more information next week when I am at the beach. So I was planning to take some time off, but y'all, I'm going to be here for you. So if there's some good information that comes out, you know that I will continue to keep you updated. I'm even taking some of my recording equipment with me to the beach, y'all. I'm going to move it over there. We're going to have a way nicer backdrop next week if I go live. So I probably won't be live unless there are changes, but if there are, I'll be here for you to tell you about it. So if you are watching me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe so that you can see those updates. Okay. Let's see. Looking through your questions. Let's see. Got that. Okay. So I applied for PPP and unemployment in Texas and received both. Can I pay off PPP in full as a loan and keep unemployment? Yes. You should be able to, yes, although that's not really in the intent of the program. So a lot of these things that I get a ton of questions, a lot of questions around specifically unemployment and PPP, also EIDL and how they work together and how can I use this and that. And I will have to say, especially with things around PPP and unemployment, honestly, but PPP is such a new program, it's not all spelled out, okay, as far as like all the specifics. Now, with unemployment, that is all run by the states. And they can have different rules in the different states. And so that's why it's really hard to really get a hard and fast answer on some of this stuff. So I tend to go back to, okay, what's the intent, right? What's the intent of PPP? Is it to be a loan? No, it's to fund your payroll during a specific period of time. So the question is, can you do that by the rules? Probably. Could they come back to you and say, hey, that wasn't really in the intent of the program and have some kind of fines on you? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. And so I think a lot of this goes down to risk tolerance. Same thing with people who are claiming. So what you can do if your PPP is small, the best thing may be, and like if PUA is more than your PPP, right? The best thing then may be to actually just claim over a period of time your PPP that you're getting and paying yourself on your PUA as income, right? So you have to put in, like if you earned money, just like you would if you earned money in your business, you have to kind of put that in your certifications. You would do the same thing. Again, though, it's different what the rules are. Some states say, okay, as soon as you get PPP, you have to start claiming it over that period of time. Some states actually just have you claim it all in 1 week, I think, like a few states. Some states have you put it, out over 8-10 weeks, whatever you're paying yourself over. Some states don't designate at all, in which case, it could make sense to actually say, well, I'm not paying myself with PPP and wait. There's some debate around whether that's okay as well. And there's really just not a lot of answers. So a lot of this comes back to how comfortable and confident are you in doing those things and what the potential repercussions could be, i.e. probably fines, as long as you're not. So here's my big thing, because people get worried. Right. And I've got people on totally different spectrums with this stuff. I got some people that are like, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to try to get every advantage that I can. Not like in a fraudulent way, but just in a like, well, the rules are a little, gray, and I'm going to take my chances in the gray. And there are people that are just totally fine there. I've got people on the other side that are like, I don't want to do anything that could get me into an ounce of trouble or make me pay a $20 fine or whatever, that are just like want to do everything 100% in, out of the gray. So it depends on the type of person you are. And like, if you're going to be like up at night, like worrying that they're going to come after you, then I probably would take the conservative route, right? And then, which would be like, don't, Don't take PPP and PUA at the same time, or don't try to delay taking your PPP so you can take unemployment, et cetera. That's really, my advice is think about you and the person that you are. Not everybody's going to make the same decision on this. And so, as a CPA, there is some gray area. Gray area doesn't guarantee they're not going to come back and say, you owe us money, right? It doesn't guarantee that. The better documented you have of conversations you've had with the SBA or conversations you've had with your banker, those aren't necessarily going to protect you legally, but they're going to help your case if you were to ever be challenged on something. We just don't know. But I do feel like the vast majority of who they're going to go after, right? I hate using that, but like go after on these things are people who are like just using their money completely. I mean, they're like falsifying that they have a business and they don't actually have a business. Some of you guys know people who don't have a business and applied and got an EIDL grant, right? Some of y'all know them. So I think they're going to go after more of those egregious people versus the people who are trying to do the best that they can. They're trying to use it the right way, but maybe, the lack of clarity has really been confusing for them. I don't think they're going to be, that's not what they're going to be spending their time doing. Okay. Well, I don't want to scare you. I definitely don't want to scare you. And I think you're saying that because you got all three. You can get all three. There's nothing that says you can't. It's just you have to think about the timing and making sure that you're doing what you need to do. If you're still claiming PUA and you got PPP and you're not claiming your PPP at all on PUA or, anything like that, then, and you've just had both of them this whole time, that can be a bit of an issue. Okay, let's see. So, this is a good question. Thirsty today. Okay, so CJ asked, do you think we'll eventually get the full $10,000 for SBA for the EIDL grant? All right, what you're talking about, I don't know, CJ, if you're a man or a woman, but what, maybe. I'll give it a hard maybe, more on the probably not side of maybe, I guess, is where I would put myself right at the second. Has there been talk of this? Yes. Has there been talk of this for a while? Yes. There was a letter that was written by certain representatives and senators to the Treasury all the way back in, I think, April or May about this specific issue and how people were supposed to get $10,000 and they didn't. And instead they changed it to $1,000 per employee and they didn't get congressional approval to make that decision, et cetera, et cetera. Do I think at this point they will change it? I don't know that there's enough support. Now, if y'all feel like calling your congressman, but remember, and here's, I think, one of the things that's made this less of a hot button issue, right, is if you got PPP, your EIDL grant gets subtracted off of your PPP forgiveness anyway. So if you got PPP, you probably don't even really care if you get more grant. And some people are like, I don't even want it because I can't spend it anyway because I'm going to have to give it back. So why do I even want that? So that increase would be most beneficial for people who did not get PPP. There's also been a lot of questions about if we did this blanket forgiveness of PPP, would that get rid of this need to subtract EIDL from it? I don't know. I don't know that they've thought through all of that. I really don't. I don't know that they're thinking through like all the many kind of the intricacies of all of these things and what you guys are really worried about, right? Which is hard because you're trying to make decisions in your business and you don't know what's forgiven, you don't know what's not. It is a tough place to be, especially the amount of uncertainty that we're staring at. So I don't know what that would mean, what blanket forgiveness would mean for the EIDL grant. And if they would just say, we're just gonna call it even, or if there would be some process for that. But that seems like that would be a lot of work for the banks if they were giving, blanket forgiveness. So it's possible. But with the $10,000, will they increase? Now they're not right now. You can't apply for the EIDL grant. It is closed. The EIDL loan is still open. Last I checked, but you won't get the grant with it if you apply. Now, if they pass something with more funds, because they've used up all the EIDL grant funds at this point, if they pass something that gives more funds, then maybe. But we just don't know. So is it possible that all of a sudden, if you got 1,000, that like in 3 weeks, $9,000 is going to show up in your account? Maybe. But remember, if you got a PPP, you got to subtract it anyway. So, but I will let you know if I see anything else on it. Okay. All right, this is a long one. Okay, I've been offered an EIDL loan. However, I don't want to accept it. Yep. I simply want the 10K advance. The loan was offered. The loan I was offered was 1K. Obviously, 10K is better. Should I decline the loan and write in for reconsideration? That might sound like an obvious question. Okay, so how many employees do you have? You won't be able to. So right now, they're not doing the advances anymore. So depending on when you applied, and so if you haven't been offered the loan at this point, you probably apply. I don't know when you applied, but they're not doing the grants anymore, so you wouldn't be able to get it. Also, if you got it, it would only be 1K per employee unless they pass something that will change that, which not impossible, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. You don't have to accept the loan though. You don't have to accept the loan. That is something you can just pass on if you don't want it. Call the SBA and talk, because they keep changing their process. At one point it was so back in the very beginning, it was you got the loan offer, and then after the loan offer, or actually you got the grant, but that was like a month after applying, and then you get the loan offer. Then they changed it, and it was you got the grant when you got the loan offer. If you accepted the loan and took the money, then you got the grant at the same time you got that loan money. Then some people were saying they took the loan, but they didn't get the grant until later. So they keep changing the timing. But if you haven't gotten the grant at this point, you're probably not going to get it unless they change and re-up this kind of grant program, which they might. Okay. Yes, if you apply EIDL today, I won't get the grant. If they reopen grants next week, we'll be retro. My guess, I don't want to guess. I would think yes, but I don't know that for sure. I don't know if the question is still there. So if when you go through the EIDL process to apply, if that question to be considered for a grant is not still there, I probably wouldn't apply unless you really want the loan. But if you're trying to get the grant, you might as well wait and see if they re-up the grants. I don't think it'll be next week though. I will say that. I don't think, even if they vote on something miraculously next week and pass it, I don't think they would open it up right away, but I don't know. Okay. All right, let's see. Again, maybe if they re-up it, then potentially, but right now you would not get it. Let's see. Okay, so this is a question a lot of people ask, and it's a good question. It is a good question. Here's the problem with this question though, right? So you could, in theory, so I think what you're saying is, well, it's a loan until it's forgiven. So why should I call it income? Which I think is a fair question when I'm thinking with my CPA hat. But I've had to basically throw my CPA hat out the flippin' window when it comes to a lot of what they're doing right now, because it doesn't necessarily align with like common tax or accounting, generally accepted knowledge. And unemployment doesn't necessarily have to align either with what's income from a taxability perspective. So that's something we have to divide the two, because they're not necessarily the same. States can make whatever the heck rules they want around, even grants that aren't taxable on a federal basis. It's not the same. They're not following the same rule book. So that's a bit of a problem. But here's the thing. Let's say you go through that, and that is a stance that some people will claim. There will be people out there that will say, you know what, I'm not calling this income on my PPP, even if your state may be asking for it because it hasn't been forgiven yet, and therefore it's not income. That is a aggressive stance. That is a stance I would call not in line with the spirit of the program, even while you might have a technical accounting or legal leg to stand on, okay? So if you do this though, but then let's say you get it forgiven later, what then, right? you have to go give back your unemployment benefits for that time period, because now all of a sudden that actually was income that you paid yourself, right? Or so it gets into a lot of complexity around timing. And I foresee a lot of issues around timing. I mean, especially with this forgiveness, when we get into year end and filing tax returns. I am so glad I don't file tax returns, you guys. I love you. I don't want to file your tax return for 2020 because it's going to be awful. And I really hope that every single one of you goes and gets a qualified accountant who understands this stuff to do your taxes, because there are so many things that can be messed up, and there are opportunities that can be missed if you don't have somebody well-versed in all of this. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is fair. Honestly. It's not that CPAs don't know. There's always, so here's the thing that's important to know. When you ask a CPA, there are certain things in anything, right? There are certain things that have black and white rules, and then there's gray. And different CPAs are going to be more conservative or less conservative on the rules. Depends on what you want. And again, like, it's usually a good CPA will work with you on your own risk tolerance as well, because you're the one that actually is, on the line for it, not us. If somebody comes back and you get audited, I'm not paying your fees, right? So it's not that CPAs don't know, it's just that a lot of these rules have not been fleshed out yet. And a lot of times the things that we look back to say, to be able to defend a position, it's just like in law, right? You look back at precedent. You look back at what's been done in the past. We look back at what the IRS has done in the past. PPP has never existed. This is a brand new program. There is zero precedent for this. So it's really hard for CPAs to even, especially then add like the changing rules every 5 seconds, right? And the fact that states have different unemployment laws. I mean, it's almost impossible for anybody, even in this kind of profession, to tell you with certainty, yes or no on a lot of this stuff, because there isn't a yes or no yet. We are limited to the same guidance that you guys can see. And a lot of it, we could use our own professional judgment, but that's what it is. It's judgment. It's not anything that's founded in specific rules that are codified somewhere. So I think that's where, when you ask a question to your CPA and you get different answers from different people, and I have a little crew of CPAs that we bounce things off of, and that's been really helpful, where we'll read something and I'll say, hey, this is how I read it. How do you read it? And then I get other people's opinions and we talk about it and have a good dialogue. I think that's the best way to really get to the heart of some of this stuff. But it's not straightforward, you guys. Yeah, it looks like so Stacy, I'm assuming you're an accountant too. It's so hard. Everything changes every few days. There's no press. It's so I don't know. It is. We're doing our best. We're doing our best to stay up to date, but it is hard to advise. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure exactly what the second part is. How do we claim the EIDL or payments we choose to make this year? Claim it for, if you mean taxes. So EIDL loan is not income. The EIDL grant. So you're talking about the loan because you're talking about payments to make this year. So the EIDL loan, just like any other loan you would take out, it's a balance sheet item. It goes on your balance sheet, does not go on your P&L when it's outstanding. So that means that it goes to a note payable. It's a liability that you have to pay. So it's not showing up as income when that money comes in. Okay, so it's not taxed. When that money goes off to pay it back, it's also not showing up as an expense except for the interest piece. The interest that you're paying will show up on your P&L as an expense, and it will be a tax deductible expense. That's really the main way it's going to impact your taxes with the EIDL. The EIDL grant, likely to be taxable income. Yes, I would expect that it will be taxable income to you. Okay. Let's see. Is a forgivable loan exactly equal to a grant? It's kind of, it is, from a tax perspective, yeah. I mean, it's basically the same thing once it's forgiven, right? So until then, it's a loan. But it is, I'm telling you, taxes for this year end is going to be really interesting. Okay. Yes, PPP non-payroll allowable expenses. Has transportation been clarified? Guessing gas fuel. Yes, it is exactly gas fuel for a business vehicle. Yes, that is 100% true. You can use PPP on that. I do think though that just from a like preparing documentation standpoint, if you have enough payroll, right? If you're either paying yourself, which I recommend paying yourself the whole thing, assuming you got the right amount of the loan, you can pay yourself the whole thing as a sole proprietor LLC. If you have employees, I think it's going to be most straightforward to calculate this off of just payroll, rather than, all the support. And then the banks are going to get confused because they're not going to know how to validate your gas fuel expenses. And so the easiest thing to have to get forgiven is your like 941s, your payroll reports. That's going to make it like easy peasy lemon squeezy on everybody. But if you really want to claim those other things, then yes, for transportation, which is part of utilities, it would be gas for a business vehicle. Okay. Do we know which lenders are accepting for PPP loans? I have had, so if you're not in my group, go to Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners and join it. It's on Facebook. You can go to balancecfo.com/group and join it. And there's that's a great place to ask like, hey, who's gotten one this week? Because it keeps changing. So I had ones, I was recommending Bluevine for a while. I think they're still accepting. PayPal, I think, stopped. It changes every single week. So there's a lot of people who post in there about, hey, I'm looking to get a loan, who's accepting this week, and people will give their advice. But try Cabbage, try Square. A lot of those kind of online, what they're called fintechs, are still accepting. So go, do a little search for those if your bank is not doing them. All right, let's see. Yeah, so Jen's got me Cabbage, Bluevine. Those are usually kind of some of the go-tos that I have. Let's see. I was overfunded, so trying to use as much as possible with the okay, so that I see. So that's why you're trying to get that gas mileage. So that makes sense. So in certain cases, if you were overfunded, I do still think you'll be able to get full forgiveness potentially if you have enough other expenses. You're still capped at that 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. But if you have other stuff you can use it for, the way the application never asks, were you over or underfunded, and that's, so I think as long as you can't pay yourself more, but you could use it for other things. Yes, for sure. Try local credit unions. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, hit the like button or like the heart or the whatever, wherever you are, Facebook or watching me on YouTube, because it does helps more people get to see my lives, and I appreciate it. That's like a little hug to like a business owner is a like. That's what I think. You're giving me a hug, except don't get too close because y'all, the Rona. Okay. If PPP is used for allowable expenses other than payroll, that would lessen the amount of reportable income for PUA. Yes. If you're not going to use all of it to pay yourself, yes. I would assume so. Keep good records. I'll tell you guys, keep good records, because I think the assumption is going to be for self-employed people that they're going to use the full thing to pay themselves. Here's the caveat to this. And I have a video that talks about this that is on YouTube. So again, go subscribe, because I have a video that talks about this. From a tax perspective, you want to weigh this, because from a tax perspective, if you are self-employed, i.e. independent contractor, LLC, sole proprietor, the best tax benefit you get is if you pay yourself only and not your other expenses. Because if you pay other expenses with PPP and that's what you're claiming as what you used PPP for, then you will lessen your tax deduction at the end of the year, because you can't take those other items like the rent and stuff like that as tax deductions. You already don't deduct what you pay yourself. So paying yourself doesn't impact your taxes. Paying other stuff does. Some of y'all are like, whoa, what? I'm not going to get into it because it does get a little bit complicated, but go watch. I have a video on YouTube called something like Self-Employed Get 100% Forgiveness. It's maybe from a month ago after the PPP Flexibility Act came out. And I talk about the element of taxation if you're a sole proprietor, LLC, or independent contractor. So go watch that. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to take like 3 more questions because I've been going for a while. What do you think the chances are for EIDL loans being forgiven for the lower loans? I think the chances are very low. I almost said 0%. I don't like to say 0% ever. You sign loan documents and paperwork. I don't think that they are going to forgive it. So, you know, I think maybe like maybe they'll forgive like up to that 10,000. I think that I could see them doing that even more than giving the cash, is forgiving that piece up to the 10,000. But I'm not the first 10,000 of your loan. But I do not see them saying your EIDL is forgiven. I would be surprised. Not impossible. Nothing's impossible these days, but I would not count on that. Okay. Let's see. All right. So I love these long questions because I have to kind of like, it's just good to see my eyes like I'm wearing a mask. I'm sure you probably already covered this at some point, so I apologize. No need to apologize at all. I received the PPP loan and it's sitting in your corporate business account. Been trying to get Wells Fargo to update my account information so I could open a separate account for the money. What's the best way to set it up and disperse it? In other words, when I pay payroll, should I just transfer the amount of money each time out of that account? Same with utilities. Okay, so what you're asking is you're going to pay employees with it, and you want to put it in a separate account. Importantly, you don't have to keep it in a separate account. So what they're going to ask for support is not, I mean, they may want to see the disbursements, but you can show that from your regular business account. Say, here's where the money went out. What they're going to want to see are those 941 reports to see, because remember, like, you can't call, like, cash is not orange and yellow, right? Like, it's not different. You can't track specific cash. So what they want to see, though, is what was your total payroll over that time period, right? So from, you know, if you're applying for the 24 weeks, what was your total payroll over the 24 weeks? If your payroll was at least the amount of your PPP loan, then that proves that you paid out the PPP funds in payroll. It doesn't matter that it was like specifically that dollar, right? So I think some banks were getting a little crazy, I think, with the like opening of different bank accounts. I do suggest it for EIDL because I just think it helps with money management, and that's a longer term loan. For PPP, I don't think you need it. You don't need to go through that whole rigmarole of like, you know, tracking every dollar. Because the other thing is, if you run payroll from that account, not all your payroll, so like your employer taxes, you can't pay with PPP. So how are you going to, it just gets really complicated to try to do that. If you want to, you can. And I know a lot of people that are doing that and then reimbursing themselves from the PPP account. It's not really necessary unless that's how your brain wraps around it better. Ultimately, you just want to track how much you're using. So if you haven't gotten my PPP tracker, balancecfo.com/PPP tracker, thousands of y'all have downloaded it. And that will help you with tracking, you know, how much you've spent as well. And then that will also keep track of your FTE count and your salaries and wages count, like that, those important things which can impact forgiveness as well. Okay, let's see. We did PPP app based on salary, but make more from our owner draws. I'm assuming you're like an S Corp or a C Corp. Were we supposed to combine both? We have small salary, so PPP was small. No, so you did it exactly right. I'm assuming since you are an S Corp or C Corp, that's exactly 100% right what you did. It's only W-2 wages. Why can you only use W-2 wages and not owner's draw if you're a corp? Because you don't pay payroll taxes on your draws. Because what you're saying basically by separating that out is you're saying, actually, my draws are in more investment income. Those are not compensation for working in the business. Your salary is compensation for working in the business. And that's your payroll, right? Your draws don't count as payroll. Those are more owner investment, right? That's your return on investment as an owner in a business, not as an employee in your business. That's why they don't count. So you did it exactly right. There are a lot of people who have not been paying themselves what they should be paying themselves as an S Corp, or they haven't been doing any kind of reasonable salary at all, which is required. Actually, it's required that you pay yourself some W-2 wages if you're an S Corp. I did, for this reason, I did a whole module in my Financial Fitness Basics course, which is still open and does still have one, I think we've got one more bonus that is going to expire soon on it, which is a live group Q&A with me. But there is a whole bonus module in my Financial Fitness Basics course on S Corps that people have really, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on. So if you're an S Corp, go check it out, balancecfo.com/basics. And you will find it. I'll link it as well so that you guys can see it if you have not checked it out already. Okay. Last question. Let's see. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. It's not that we don't know, it's that it's different based on the state, and not every state has issued guidance on this. This is a state determination, not a PPP one, right? So federally, they're not telling you what you have to do for unemployment because unemployment is administered by the state. And so if your state is not telling you specifically, a lot of states are saying, okay, even when you go to certify, they're asking if you got a PPP. And then you would put that in and the amount of time you're going to use it over. And then they're automatically applying it against your PPP or your PUA certifications. But some states aren't doing that. And so that leaves, some things open to interpretation. You can try and call your state unemployment office. Sometimes people call and they get different answers or they just can't get through it all. So it's really something that's up to the state. So it's hard to advise on. I think if you can't get an answer, do what makes sense and what you're comfortable with from a risk perspective and document what you did. That's the best advice that I can give. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And no, Vicky, it does not expire ever. It is there forever. Even as I make updates and improvements and add cool stuff in there and more worksheets and more guides, you get it, and you get to keep it forever. So, yeah. So, nope, it does not expire. But you need to get in there because it's fun. We're having a party. Join us. Okay, guys. Love y'all. You're awesome. It's Friday. Like I said, next week, there's going to probably be more information on all of this. So I'm going to be out of town, but I will update you guys. The Facebook page, definitely be there, balancecfo.com/group. Get over there so that you can get updates. It is financial literacy for women business owners, but we do have lots of amazing men in there as well. So it is all inclusive. And so, yeah, so come watch there and subscribe to my channel so that you can see all the updates as they come out over the next couple of weeks. Okay, bye guys. You guys are awesome. Happy Friday.